20 years ago, there was a young girl who just finished her GCSEs. She was really optimistic about what the world of work was going to look like for her. She decided and made the decisions really early not to go on to further education or higher education. School just hadn't really been her thing. Academically, she did okay, but did not excel because she was distracted by life, as many of our young people are today. What's really interesting about that young girl is that if she was to take her GCSEs this year, she'd have been labelled, really labelled. She'd have been a girl. She'd have been labelled a C, D student. She'd have been labelled a free school meal student. She'd have been labelled possibly a failure because she got a D in maths. And the measure of success of our young people is that they achieve these grades of A to C. And if they don't achieve those grades of A to C, then doom and gloom. They won't be able to progress. They might end up in dead-end jobs. It's something that they're often hearing today. So not only do our young people have to contend with so many labels that we've given them as a society, they also have to have all of the pressures about what success looks like for them and what we've measured success for our young people today. It's really interesting in today's modern world. We're preparing young people for careers that actually many of our schools are not for their own fault. They work very, very hard and they're very, very focused on helping students and young people progress. But we're preparing them in a system that was well equipped 50, 60, 70 years ago for the job it's doing. But for today and for the world in which our young people are going to be working in, it's much more agile. Our young people are going to end up in careers that 20 years ago didn't even exist. There are now careers for drone flyers, photographers, using new equipment that just was never even thought of. Social media is a massive career and a growth in IT, that young people have so many opportunities ahead of them. Their careers and their futures are really, really exciting. But we put the lid on them really early by giving them so many labels, by telling them that they have to achieve and they have to go through a system, maybe a traditional system of doing their GCSEs, doing their A-levels, going on to university, because that's what success looks like. For the girl in our story, maybe because society hadn't had all those labels around her, maybe because she just had some great supporters and mentors who encouraged her to just follow her own path, whatever that might be, she was able to go into the world of work at 16 into full-time employment. And that's interesting as well, because for our girl in the story, 20 years ago, by the time she had left school at 16, she'd already had jobs as paper girls, waitresses, she'd worked as a kitchen assistant, she'd been a babysitter. So she was ready for the world of work. She'd had lots of different experiences. So going to work full-time was an easy transition for her at 16. And today in our schools, that's much harder for our young people. They're focusing on academic achievement. We don't necessarily have, across the country, parallels in all schools offering work experience. So there are hundreds and thousands of young people who are leaving education at different points without having the confidence and the experiences of the world of work around them to leap into that next phase. The girl in our story, she was able to move herself into different roles. She took the opportunity to develop her professional skills. She recognised that actually if she wanted to achieve success, she was going to have to take ownership of developing those skills kind of outside and beyond education. So she applied herself to the job that she was doing and used that experience from the job to gain promotions and move and move and move. She worked in different industries and different sectors. And what that allowed her to do was to kind of experience life and grow. And it's one of the challenges our young people face today is that they don't get those experiences to grow without the pressure. Because of the labels and the difficulties around youth unemployment, it is so much pressure on those young people in finding their role and their pathway. So youth unemployment in the UK reached its kind of peak number in 2011, where we had 1 in 5 young people at risk of being NEET, not in education, employment or training, yet another label that we put on our young people. And for those young people who experience unemployment, making them the next steps to finding that journey, to finding their success, becomes harder and harder. And those young people are at risk of being in a cycle of long-term youth unemployment. And that's not just young people who have not succeeded within the education system, that's also our graduates. When youth unemployment was at the highest levels, we had as many graduates as we did young people who'd fallen out of the education system, trying to find employment and trying to find support. What strikes me in my organisation, we work very closely with 16 to 24-year-olds, and we work very closely with employers. And one of the big disconnects really is that there is an employment community desperate to create opportunities for our young people. The pathways are so diverse for our young people today. The world of apprenticeships is really super exciting. The world of graduate employment, again, is super exciting. The employment community recognises that it needs to support these young people through that transition of leaving education and into employment. We have employers that cannot fulfil their need for young people and young talent in their businesses. Sectors, whole sectors, that recognise the skill shortage that they have going forward as they have ageing workforces, and young people are just not aware of the careers that are available to them. Just as we then have some organisations and some employers that are receiving tens of thousands of applications for every one job. So the information that's available to our young people about what careers exist and where the opportunities are has got lost around the ether, I guess. The big world of the internet is actually making it much, much harder for our young people to reach the things that they need to help them progress. And it's one of the big challenges that they have, in addition to being labelled, to youth unemployment still being at too high levels now, not having the career support or the work experience that they need to be able to navigate. Many employers still recognising or still accepting that they want young people with work experience, with good qualifications, that the A to C is the benchmark for success as part of their employment criteria. Employers who are sifting CVs of young people based on these magic numbers. And for our young people whose experience of education maybe was a bit similar to the girl in our story, their struggle is so much greater. There are over 7 million 16 to 24-year-olds in the UK today, and they all need equal support in being able to progress. They all need equal support in being inspired by the world that surrounds them. For us and for our organisation, that's something that we think we all have a responsibility to do. How can it be that our young people, the very fabric of our society, those young people who are going to be our industry leaders, our politicians, are not getting the help they need? And for us, we want to encourage all of us, you and me, to help and to reach out to those young people. There is something that we all have to give. And every young person that we talk to within our network recognises that one of the things that would have helped them most is having a mentor, is having somebody who would remove the labels and would help them and give them that leg up that they were going to need. So for us as an organisation, that's something that we work really hard to encourage and to support, and to also help organisations remove the labels that they do give young people, the neat label. Why not reframe it and call our young people young professionals? Seeing them as young professionals in the making, as opposed to seeing them as CD students, or seeing them as students who are at risk, seeing them as students who are young people who are neat. Let's give them the opportunity to be a young professional with the entire world ahead of them to be the successes that they can be. Because as our girl in our story knows, actually the sky, it's only a limit, and that too can be exceeded. Because that girl who was labelled, who got a D in her maths GCSE, which would make her a failure in today's world, she's standing in front of you, nervously doing a TED talk. She's running now a national organisation working to fight and tackle youth unemployment, because she didn't see her labels. She saw the opportunity that the world could give her. And as a parent in particular, she recognises that actually, if the world doesn't change and we don't change the way we see our young people, her children and your children are going to have the same labels. Thank you.